What up, everyone? This is the Twice Over Film Club, and I'm your host, Faraz. Today we're discussing Nightcrawler with myself, Farhan, and Yusuf. If you haven't seen this film yet, check out our spoiler-free preview episode from last week, and as of this recording, the film is still streaming on Netflix in the US. If you're new to our podcast, check out thetwiceover.com where you can see how we scored all of the films that we've watched and discussed, as well as see your tally for each movie according to your preferences. Recent films we've discussed include the Russian film Elena from 2014, Whiplash, Interstellar, The Father, Promising Young Woman, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. Also, follow us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd to keep up with our watch list. Alright, here's our discussion. Hey, I'm gonna bring it up, don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, crime is creeping into the rich suburbs.
Yeah.
Guys, so, I mean,
Wow, what a way! I didn't even think about that, guys. What a way to tie into this discussion, huh?
hey, you like
Yeah,
it?
so we got Jake Gyllenhaal, right? He's playing a character, Louis Bloom. I guess he's a small-time thief. He's just trying to make ends meet. This is during the recession, right? So, I don't know, 2008-ish, maybe a little later. It came out in 2014, but I assume it takes place a few years before that. Only because of the economic conditions that they show. But yeah, so he's trying to make ends meet. He is like a small-time thief. Looks like he steals like scrap metal from where he can find it and sells it. He is a go-getter. He's a hustler. He's trying to get like a legitimate job. And he's very determined and persistent in doing so. And he's also super awkward. You guys want to talk about that a little bit? I think Yusuf was kind of touching on it in the preview.
I mean, just from the get-go, right? Like you said, he's a go-getter. I mean, that's like I would put that in strong quotation marks. Like he's a motivated individual.
Yeah.
I mean, we see him try to talk his way into several jobs, but there's definitely just something off about him, right? He's willing to go pretty far to succeed and or survive, right? I mean, let's just say it that way.
Oh yeah, I mean he has no, I guess he has no boundaries in terms of what will come in his way.
I mean, he's a sociopath.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a summary way
Just
to put
like
it, right?
clinically, he's a sociopath. You know, he's just devoid of empathy. Like that kind of feeling. Not devoid of feeling, devoid of empathy. Literally, yeah. We'll stop at literally nothing. Doesn't matter who's in his way. He's going to he's going to try to get what he wants. So, I mean, I think this is a really interesting insight into mental illness. We talked about mental illness and other stuff, right, before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have. I mean, not in this light, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's go Silver Linings Playbook, right? We definitely.
Oh,
talked
yeah,
about,
of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a little bit of a darker look on how.
Well, this is
things
kind of like
can be.
this is what would you call it, man? It makes light of the fact. It makes light of the whole situation. It's like satire.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This
I
movie,
think so.
Yeah.
In a way.
You don't think
yeah.
so?
I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, but it's not presented as a satire, but it is, I guess, satirizing the life of a sociopath in a way. But like Yusuf said, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, it's very dark. It's dark,
Yeah.
dark satire. I mean, it's not like, it's not in your face, but I think technically you would have to. I think you would have to call it that.
I think that there's definitely some satirical elements there, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
Should we rattle through the plot before we get into the discussion?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, like so. I was saying he's basically trying to make ends meet. He comes across early in the movie a car crash that happened on the highway in Los Angeles, and there's the California Highway Patrol trying to save someone that is in the car, and the car is on fire, or at least the engine is. And while he's like watching, he sees this van pull up, and these two guys come out with a camera, and they're recording the scene. They're recording what's happening, and he's just from the scene, his attention shifts towards them, and he's just wondering, what are these guys doing? Finds out that these guys record, or they basically have police scanners in their car. Whenever they hear that something's about to go down or something's happening, they drive to the scene, they record it, and then they sell that footage to local news media, and that's how they get paid. And Louis Bloom, someone who is totally emotionally disconnected from like the situation, like what's happening, thinks like, hey, this is the perfect way for him to hustle and to make some money.
Yeah, I mean, so we watch him essentially start trying to do this himself, right? Trying to be a stringer. He sells a bike that he stole to buy a camera, and he just starts running around trying to film accidents or robberies or whatever he can catch on a police scanner. At first unsuccessfully, but eventually hitting it off. He hires an intern, Rick, played by Riz Ahmed, to help out, mostly just to navigate and hold his stuff, I guess. But and he also develops a working relationship with a news station producer, Nina, who's played by Rene Rousseau,
Yeah.
who loves his footage. But Lou is continually kind of pushing boundaries with her to advance his position in the field, like with the station, but also with her sexually. He eventually gets borderline illegal footage, we can say, from inside a home invasion / homicide, and gives it to Nina, who's desperate for this kind of footage, right? She wants the scary news that will draw in viewers, and basically perpetuate fear, but it's going to drive up her ratings. In that footage, he also hides the fact that he caught glimpses of the identity of the suspects, right? He kind of keeps that in his back pocket, and later, once things cool down, eventually tracks down the suspects, waits until they're in a public location, and then reports them so he can catch footage of a dangerous shootout with the police. And so this, in that climax, he there's essentially a car chase, and he purposely puts his intern Rick in danger in order to get rid of him because he was essentially getting too uppity, asking for too much money and the like. He lies to him and says the
losing
suspect
his leverage
is dead.
to him.
Losing his leverage, yeah, that's that's the terminology that Lou would use, right? He lies to Rick and tells him the suspect is dead in order to put him right in front of the suspect, who shoots him several times. Lou stands there just collecting the footage of Rick's corpse, and yeah, eventually the police arrest Lou based on the footage that he collected, under suspicion that he kind of planned that shootout, but as usual, he talks his way right out of it, and they have no evidence, so they let him go.
Yeah, and the movie ends with him having a successful business. One thing we miss in there, he takes out his competition by cutting the brake lines or something similar of his competition's van.
Yeah. I was gonna talk about that. Let's just get into it. Yeah, I actually didn't catch how that exactly might have happened, but going back to kind of his trajectory upwards, there is kind of a snapping point where Nina tells him like she needs some footage, and the next thing that happens is there's a scene where they're driving towards what they know is a car accident, and Rick is like, why are we going there? Why are we going to a car accident when we just heard on the scanner that there's a rape in the park? Everyone's going there. And Lou doesn't really give him a reason. But when we get there, we find out that it's the other Stringer's van, right? Joe Loader, from Mayhem News or whatever. It's his van that crashed into a pole. I was going to ask, is there some sort of implication that he was behind it? You're suggesting that there was?
Of course.
Oh yeah, 100% there was. Yeah.
I guess I missed something.
He was working on his van underneath it.
He was under the van. We don't know. I mean, the reason I say it's not just as easy as cutting a brake line is because he would have noticed his brake line is cut the second he got out of his driveway.
Yeah.
So it's probably something else, but whatever it was, maybe he drained the steering fluid. I don't know. He did something. But you don't remember that scene, Yusuf? He's under the van. It's daytime, and then he just basically walks away, goes to his car. This also happens right after Joe actually offers...
The helicopter one. It's after the helicopter scene. So Joe offers... So are we going at every single plot point here? But
no, what was the helicopter scene?
So Joe offers Lou a job. Lou says, no, I'm good. I like working for myself. You're my competition. Yeah. I'm going to take you out anyways. Basically, that's what he means to say.
Well, I was going to say that. I interpreted that as... Lou just wants to be himself, like go-getter, hustler.
Sure, okay, yeah, maybe that's what it was.
But what annoys him is that Joe, because they have that one crash, the helicopter one, and he sees that Joe both made it to the helicopter crash before him and got everything, and his other van went to the other incident and got recording of that as well. So they got both things, and it's basically exactly what Joe was telling Lou, like, hey, this is what we can do. It's not that we're splitting the work, it's that we're doubling the sales that we're going to have. And I think that's what triggers in Lou, and he's like, I gotta do something about him because he has a clear advantage on me now.
Yeah.
And that's when he goes on to the van and cuts the brakes or does something.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I just missed that shot of him underneath the van, but I was kind of piecing it together, and I was like, are they implying this, or is there something solid there? Clearly, there was, kind of a solid shot where you see
Yeah.
him doing it, because it's also right after, we can talk more about his relationship with Nina, but she essentially yells at him in the station and says that, like, I want what you promised me, right?
Yeah, because it's that night, right, that he doesn't get any footage.
Yeah.
Like he's late to everything, and Nina's just like, "This is what you got from me. Like this is it." And she basically scolds him and says that this is not why we hired you.
And Rick kind of knows in that moment too, right? Because he keeps asking. He's like, you're telling me they just ran straight into a pole, and he was like, yeah, they were probably in a rush to get over to the other accident or whatever, and he just kind of brushes it off. But I think Rick is obviously suspecting slowly that he's a little bit off his rocker, as he
I was wondering that
develop.
if Rick is figuring it out at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think he
not
is.
then, but towards the end, I think we kind of get the idea that Rick kind of understands that the way Lou works and the lines that he'll cross.
I think everyone figures it out like around that time. I think he figures it out, but he never really says anything. And he's like, it's not concrete, but because he says like, that's our colleague. Like, don't.
Yeah, he says don't
He's like,
record
no,
him.
you're a professional. I think we get a shot of his face, and we see Nina. Nina, that's her name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, like when he had blood on her shirt, you could see her being like, "This is shady."
And yeah, I mean, Rick even he eventually comes clean about. I mean, not comes clean. He calls out Lou for it, right? But the way he calls him out is by asking for more money. So there's part of him that was just taking advantage of that more than running from the situation, right? And that's what eventually does get him killed, is making the ask for half the money they're gonna make that night or whatever.
Man, bro, the poor guy's making $30 a night, man.
He moved up to these like 75 a night.
Oh my god, that I loved that that scene just
dude.
because of the way that Riz is like he's like mumbling 100 175 like he talks
70?
himself down.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Poor guy, man. I felt so bad for him. Oh, man. Yeah, so that's more or less the plot. We went through it. I think we all like the narrative quite a bit, right? 85, 80, and 80. It's definitely an above average story. I think the story is very engaging. I'm not giving much credit to the direction here in general. I thought the story on its own like carried it. Plus,
Really?
we'll talk about it a little more is the acting. I mean,
I think the direction is what carried it and not the story. I think it's the reverse. I think if you...
really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they made this thing super suspenseful. He's doing a bunch of different things, but...
But this is a pretty simple story.
Simple story.
A story about a sociopath, you can say,
Right,
right? I mean,
right.
a decent amount happens, but like when you think
Yeah.
about the degree, the gravity of the things that you normally see in like just to throw out some examples, like American Psycho or Joker, right? Just these like these lone sociopathic characters. Not a lot happens in this movie, but yeah, the pacing was just really good. I felt like the suspense built perfectly, and you really did feel like a lot more was happening, or you just felt the gravity of everything more.
Yeah, actually, I will say I did note that like that car chase at the end when they're chasing the SUV with the two suspects, or we know they're not suspects, they're the actual murderers. That was a very well shot chase scene, and it was super like tense and high paced, and it was just fun to watch, like for those scenes. But I don't know. I guess I didn't notice much in terms of pacing otherwise. There was some tension, but I chalked that up to like Jake Gyllenhaal's like just acting. He's building that tension through his expressions and stuff and his demeanor. Not so much from like I guess there is credit obviously to the direction there, like in terms of the shots that are being used and all that.
So I would have to watch this movie again to give more concrete examples. But the first, I don't know, maybe first half of the movie, I'm just gonna say that I don't know if that's true. The music was different when he was at a scene, filming. When he arrived to the crime scene and he'd be filming, it was like jovial. even though
Yeah.
he was filming something very dark, or he was doing something very dark, you know. It
Hmm.
would be like kind of like it would be like jovial music, and then I don't remember where, but somewhere the music started to change and be a lot more. Maybe it was the scene where he came upon the that murder, the triple
The
homicide.
mansion. Yeah.
Maybe it was that scene, and the music changed, and it wasn't like a playful kind of tone. It was what you would expect in a scene like that.
Farhan, it's funny you say playful because I know exactly what you're saying. That first half or first third or whatever it was, it felt like it was music straight out of Midnight Club, the video game. Like it's for like high octane racing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's what it felt like. It didn't really fit the darkness of what we were watching
Right.
really.
Right.
And then it does change towards the end where it kind of matches really what we're seeing, which is
Right.
way more tense, way more suspenseful.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of go ahead.
I'll just say, especially in the car chase, and especially when he arrives at the triple homicide scene. But
Yeah.
what were we gonna say, Yusuf?
There's a lot of moments from the opening shot. I mean, it's not even like high octane music. It's like inspirational music.
Yeah.
Right, it's like uplifting, and then it disappears for a while. You're right, but they do bring it back in like the latter moments of the movie. I mean, there's something to be said there for what Dan Gilroy is trying to do with your your perception of this guy, because you know kind of like the horrors that he's committing, but like he's almost framing it and like look he's he can accomplish anything his mind is put to. Like it's almost like that in a sense. I thought that was there's like a satirical nature to that, I think,
Right,
the way that
yeah.
he decides to present it. So yeah, and so part of why I scored them high on aesthetics was for those choices
Right.
as well.
Right.
Because just those musical choices, it was so off that you knew it had to be on purpose. It's not even like where you could be like, oh, this just doesn't work, you know?
But if you think about who his character is, that music plays so well with the way that the music, the juxtaposition with the music and what's going on, the way that makes you feel. That's how he makes you feel.
It's how he
Yeah,
would
yeah.
portray himself,
That's
right?
how he'd
It's how
portray
he would-
himself.
Yeah.
The music fits like Lewis Bloom specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So at
Yeah.
it points at if it's him and his perception of what he is doing, and then at points it's pulling the curtain back and being like, this is really what's going on.
Yeah, and that would make sense because right when Nina scolds him that he's not getting enough done, you could say that's when the music changes, Farn, because then we're feeling what Lou is feeling, which is like, all right, like my back's
A lot
kind of
more
against
tense,
the wall.
yeah.
It's more tense. I have to do something. Maybe that's the moment where we saw like the music kind of the tone of it change.
Maybe. Yeah, like I said, I'd have to watch it again to see exactly where, but just the fact that they were able to achieve that, and yeah, which is why, you mentioned, I think did you mention that he was like a villain character in this movie? I don't know if he is. I think he's a protagonist.
It's so hard.
Right?
You can almost watch the whole movie through in either frame of mind. But yeah, I mean it's a fair point, because part of this entire story is just about like, putting your mind to something and being a Lou Bloom, like an enterprising individual, right? And so like it's the choices that they make are clearly trying to push you in that direction, without a doubt. So you can totally argue he's the protagonist. Part of what helps that also, and I think this is a directorial choice. I mean, it's probably in the writing as well, right? But we don't get any background on him, right? And I do kind of love movies like this where they just drop you into a character like that. So like you just have to guess about like what the hell happened to him to make him this way. This is something actually the guys on the Film Spotting podcast talk about a lot. Just the idea of just cutting out all of that kind of that urge to give background information on a character like this. Just cut it out and do without it, and it's just like let people figure it out and catch up to the character, right? I do think that really helps, kind of, because you're constantly trying to understand this guy, and if you know his backstory and what his motivations are, it ruins that experience for you. So I thought that was a really good choice.
100%. I love how you said that, because so like you see this in, this is why I had a period where I was just obsessed with like short films. And I've always been obsessed with short fiction because you have to be way more skillful in your delivery to be able to provide all the background that you would get, from a typical movie where it starts, this is him as a kid. Okay, now he's a teenager, or now this is how he ends up being to this, or whatever it is, right? You think about like a typical like origin story sort of stuff. To be able to pull off depth in a character without explaining anything, whether it be in film or whether it be in fiction, that is so much harder to do. So much harder to do because the character the acting has to speak for the background as well as the writing, as well as even the direction, the tone that the character speaks in, the tone that the character is, even the lighting in this movie, the way that the character is illuminated, the way that they walk, the way that they smile, what the things that they smile at, the reactions to people walking, people walking next to them, like the smallest things, the way that people react to those things, you can get a glimpse, and the possibilities are endless. But we all kind of can see, one of 15 ways that his life must have been growing up.
Right, and it's all, there's a common denominator, right? Even if you don't know the specifics.
So I love that. I really love when movies don't sit there and, okay, now let's give the background on this character. Let's really tell them why he became, the way he became. They were normal at one time, and now then there was this event, and their parents died, and now they're sad. No, dude, let's leave it.
On Bruce Wayne. I don't understand what your problem is.
I wasn't even really thinking about that, but yeah, I kind of was. But just the point is that he is obviously, he's mentally ill and he's a sociopath. And that's all we need to know.
Well, tell me this. So both of you guys appreciated the writing a lot more than me, as did, seems like, the Academy. What was so incredible about it? Because I didn't catch much. If anything, I was left wanting more in terms of conversation than we got, rather than just like a business school PowerPoint that we just heard Lou just saying over and over again.
That is, I feel like that's a little bit of an unfair way to
It
evaluate
is, for
that
sure
dialogue.
I mean, I was, Faraz, we have the same guidelines for these categories. I was never taken out of the movie because of the writing.
Sure, that would just put it at a 70 for me.
Really? See,
Like,
no, for me, that's
So
that's like an
average
80.
movie for you. You're used. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Average movies take me out because of the writing. 100%.
Okay.
That already brings me to like an 80, 85 or something. But and that there's a lot that goes into that, but the dialogue was appropriate for each character, and it was executed. I love Riz Ahmed's delivery of the dialogue that he was given.
Very little dialogue, but he delivered it well.
Yeah, I mean the scenes that he was in, they weren't. It wasn't little dialogue. Like when he was negotiating his salary, man, that is beautiful writing. That is beautiful writing. I mean,
it's beautiful writing, but it's, I think, amplified by the acting.
For sure.
It's really hard in this movie to draw the line between the acting and the writing.
Exactly.
I agree. Because there's so much of it, I was like, where is this coming from? Like, I want to see what the actual line on the script was to see who, whether the actor kind of took it to the next level or not. So that is a fair point. But I do think a lot of, particularly Jake Gyllenhaal's lines they were written so perfectly.
Yeah.
And you said it's like a business presentation or something, right? But that's the thing. Like, all of his lines are written like someone who's in an infomercial, right? It's
the
rehearsed
infomercial,
and
I like
regurgitated, right, in like this artificial tone, right? The way that Jake plays it out, right? So that part is perfect. But the genius thing about it was that it is chock full of cliches, and yet like it turns all the cliches on their heads, because the way that he delivers it, it's so fake.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the point. I don't know, I just thought that was so clever, because everything he says comes out of some sort of commercial or self-help book or something, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, it's just telling you what a fraud he is. I thought that was so good.
Yeah, so I actually like put that into my theme score, thinking like that's what they were going for.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and in terms of writing and acting, like you said, I guess you guys just saw a better balance than I did. I thought the acting was carrying it. So I
Mm,
mean, I'm in line with you guys with acting, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna obviously change my score, but I can see where you guys are coming from.
I
It's about the balance, right? It's just
right.
where do you draw the line in terms of what was the actor in their
Hmm.
delivery versus what was the writing in what they were asked to do.
There was just like, I mean, like I don't even want to say like a favorite moment because I can't think of one, but like just even in the opening scene where he's trying to get the job at the construction site, and the way
Yeah,
he like
that was a good
lays
one.
out his resume is just so funny. And I don't know, just he there's a thing he says about like a school of fish and how communication is the number one key to success, and there's an acronym for fear because it means something. Like Faraz,
Fear is oh, hold on. Fearing evidence no, false evidence appearing real. Yeah. But you know what though, like so the interview scene, the very first one of the first scenes is such a, I think that tells a lot about his character, because this is his, you can see how enthusiastic and how optimistic he is about the lines that he's delivering. He's like, I got him. Like, this is what they want to hear.
Yeah,
And, you know, he thinks that this is what is going to get you success, because that's what Tony Robbins is telling him, or whoever, you know what I mean? Like with the self-help stuff that you're talking about. And at some point in the movie, he realizes, I have to not abandon that stuff, but kind of make my own way. I'm not going to start from the bottom and do all this crap, right?
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
where that happened. I don't know where that switch happened, but I think it was just a brilliant insight into the way that his mind thinks. Like, he's optimistic about where success will come from at one point in the movie, and then in the end he's just more, I don't know, what would you call it?
Yeah, direct, ruthless, I
Yeah.
guess, right? Something like that. There is a moment that I can think of where, I think it's right when he gets the footage from the home invasion, and he kind of he knows he has Nina, right?
Right.
She needs the footage, and he can make pretty much any offer, or he can make any ask that he wants, right? He gives this monologue for us. You should just go pull the clip of Jake on that. It's like around the 1 hour 10 minute mark, but he's saying like, we have Video Production News. That's the name of my company. That's how I
oh
need.
Yeah.
He said
yeah,
I need credit on air. They need to say Video Production News,
Yeah.
a news gathering service, and then like he just says Video Production News so many times,
Yeah.
and then like he's like, I want to go run. I want to meet your staff. I want to develop my relationships with these people, and that's not all. And it's just it was just gold. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Like,
was great.
15.
I can't spend a month's budget on a single story.
What if the story's not over? The people who did this escaped. They're still out there, walking around with the rest of us. If I had a family and I lived in a home, that might make me nervous. I'd want updates on what was going on. With this footage, people would turn to your channel for the story. Now, I like you, Nina, and I look forward to our time together, but you have to understand, 15,000 isn't all that I want. From here on, starting now, I want my work to be credited by the anchors and on a burn. The name of my company is Video Production News, a professional news gathering service. That's how it should be read, and that's how it should be said. I also want to go to the next rung and meet your team, and the station manager, and the director, and the anchors, and start developing my own personal relationships. I'd like to start meeting them this morning. You'll take me around, you'll introduce me as the owner and president of Video Production News, and remind them of some of my many other stories. I'm not done. I also want to stop our discussion over prices. This will save time. So when I say that a particular number is my lowest price, that's my lowest price. And you can be assured that I arrived at whatever that number is very carefully. Now, when I say that I want these things, I mean that I want them. And I don't want to have to ask again. And the last thing that I want, Nina, is for you to do the things that I ask you to do when we're alone together in your apartment. Not like the last time.
It was great. I loved, you know what, my favorite scene? No, I don't know my favorite scene. I loved the news scene. When they're at, that's really vague. When they're on air, when they're on air, and
describing
Nina's
the
and
triple
Nina's like,
homicide.
yeah, okay, we need to hammer this, and like, I just thought that was it was a cool insight to I guess behind the scenes into like
Oh,
news.
right. So she's cueing the
directing.
on-air anchors.
She's
right?
directing
Yeah.
the anchors and
Right,
directing
yeah.
everything, right? Like hammer this, talk about, say these lines again, say this again, hammer this. Okay, pull up this clip or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that was really cool.
And simultaneously, Lou is standing in the background and he's listening in on them. And like, I think this is the one moment in the, I want to talk about Jake's acting more still, honestly, but I think that scene is the one moment where Lou smiles, and it's a genuine smile because he hears video production news being said on
Yeah.
air, and his eyes actually light up.
Yeah.
But like watching his reactions to the news and how proud he was another like little just nugget inside that scene. So yeah, I really did enjoy that scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Farn, you asked who the villain is. It's the news media. That's the
I
villain.
think that's right.
Are you saying that seriously or?
Somewhat seriously, yeah.
I don't think in this movie they are, but obviously they are in real life. That's for sure. I don't think that they are the villain in this movie. I don't know who
Well,
is.
because both Nina and Lou are kind of, so the news media is enabling Lou to do what he does,
Yes.
right? And almost pushing him to cross those lines because they need something as sensational as possible to get eyes. And then Nina is being pushed by the same beast, and she's being pushed because she needs to make sure that ratings are high so that she can keep her job.
Mm-hmm.
So they both have like the same power that's going against them. And I don't know.
You might be
I'm
right.
Not, like saying
No,
that,
you might be right. Yeah.
I'm just saying that they are a villain. Are they the villain? I don't know.
Well,
About that.
I don't think there is a like the villain. Like a single one.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You're probably
In
right
this
about
movie,
that.
Maybe there isn't one.
I think it's
Yeah.
like maybe it's that. Maybe it's just like the prospect of like success at any costs, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's a perfect point because Lou is outwardly the success at any cost guy, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that like even the established entities, the media, they're operating the same way basically.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be as overt, but they're doing the same thing. And so they make a very strong point to show that the way the media builds fear and hides the truth for their own benefit, right? I mean, Nina basically buries the fact that, oh, this is actually a drug bust. It wasn't just crime creeping into the suburbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
She buries
Yeah.
that story because it doesn't help the narrative
narrative.
that she's trying to build, right?
And that's just that. She wants like a week-long segment on it, where it's like hammered home every single day, at the noon hour, at night, at the morning news. Like she has like an entire plan. It's not like, here, we're gonna tell this news and move on. No, she's gonna, repeat it over and over again and withhold, like you said, information that is contrary to the narrative that she's trying to push.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I think I had that as one of the kind of the themes, not specifically the way the media does it, but the way that the entire system kind of does that, right? There's multiple players and they're all kind of operating the same way. So, and the media obviously being one of them. I mean, it's just, there are so many good scenes where you see very, very kind of subtly, you just see the way that she is constructing the story in the newsroom, right? Those little moments where they don't really put much emphasis on it, but I thought those were good to show that like they're building a story, they're not reporting a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just like telling the facts, right? Even if they had just left it at that, like, hey, a triple homicide happened in this neighborhood. That's not what they leave it at. Like they add some color commentary to like you said, to build a story around it.
Like, where's my title? Horror House. It needs to be on the front. She
Yeah.
gets really mad
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's nuts, man.
I mean, the sad thing is like it's so real. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
And that's like the worst thing. And like they even go through. I think Lou goes through like all these little statistics that he knows about the local news media. How they spend like 20 seconds on like actual stuff, and then they spend like 20 minutes on crime. and I don't know, like 70% of the U.S. population gets their news from their local news outlets. So like he already knows all of this, and he's using it to his advantage, I guess. And yeah, he's basically telling Nina this, right? Because he's like, you need this for your ratings, and you need it for your ratings so you can keep your job, because you can't last more than 2 years at any station. It's a lot of gamesmanship by him.
Mm-hmm.
About the business school stuff, or I should say, the Lou's self-learning, how he's like learning stuff, what I would assume is from like YouTube videos
I mean, he
of
does a
all
great
these
job
self-help
researching
stuff.
on Nina, so I mean, something's working.
I mean, well, like we talked about how he's so emotionally disconnected, lacking empathy. That's really what like our business curriculum is. Like it totally lacks empathy. And I felt like that when I was in school, and I was like, this can't be like how we're being taught this stuff, right? But it really is, man. All that stuff. And Yusuf, it's funny that it keeps going back to this, but the worst years of my life was in public accounting is because everyone talked like that, man. Not everyone. I'll say 40% of the people talk like that, but that's way too much still. Like when people are talking like sociopaths, you don't it's not nice.
Yeah.
That's just part of the themes in general, that the whole fake I don't know, like it says a fake understanding of how people work and how business works. It's very disconnected, like from a human element, and I think this movie nails it on the head with that, because
Yeah.
he's following the rules like to the T, right? Lou is doing every little thing in terms of communication with Rick. He's doing it very well. He's super open with him in terms of using leverage when he has it for his business, to get the most for his work. He's doing everything perfectly well, but we see how insane it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said up top, just in terms of a fake understanding of what people are, what they want, or what they need, like that is what Jake Gyllenhaal did in this movie. So I mean, like he carried that so well. It was like, it's like watching somebody who has been watching humans on TV for years and is now trying to be one, right? To me, it just reminds me of Kawhi Leonard, dude. Like, and that's why I said
so
that at
bogus.
the
Oh my
opening,
God,
because, dude, the way that he acts sometimes, he's just such a robot. But it's like, he knows what he thinks the right thing to do is, and he tries to be normal, and he ends up coming out as hey hey hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
In defense of Kawhi Leonard, that's his public persona. We don't know what he's like, with his boys or with his family at home.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. But we don't know what Lou Bloom is like in the privacy. Well, I don't know.
Well, he doesn't have any private things.
As far as we know, there's only one scene where he actually opens up. That's the one where he's looking at himself in the mirror, and that's the one scene where he actually loses it. Right? He freaks out and he breaks the mirror. Thought that was a really well shot scene, by the way. But yeah.
What does he say there that tells you that he's opening up?
No, I just mean like we actually see him kind of like
like
losing
have
his
something
cover.
introspection or something.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Other than that, even though like there's obviously some turmoil inside, he's like holding it in and he keeps that fake smile on in public.
Yeah.
But that's the one moment where he breaks. The fake smile, dude. I love that throughout. There's just
Oh my God.
you can feel the fakeness of it, but it's always there, and it just never looks actually genuine. I also noticed he's almost never smiling when he's alone. He turns it on like a switch as soon as there's other people around, which is so appropriate, and then it drops out as soon as he's alone again. So outside of the one moment that we talked about, while he's watching, the home invasion footage on live news, really like it's like a thing that he thinks he's supposed to be doing. I thought that was so good.
Agreed.
Yeah, man. His acting is just like phenomenal.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Riz a little bit too, because you guys really liked his performance, and obviously he has less screen time to work with.
Well, I mean, like I said, this was my first exposure to him, and I remember thinking like, oh, that kid was really good, especially because of that scene which we've already mentioned a couple times now, where he's negotiating his salary. But even the first interview, and again, Lou is like, hey, sell yourself. Tell me what your experience, and Rick he's trying, but like he's already, the way he plays off of Lou is what was like really good, because you can tell he's super uncomfortable by like Lou's presence and the way that Lou is talking, and then just the way he delivers his lines is also, I mean, it just fits his character. He's a little unsure of himself. He's also unsure of Lou, and he's scared. I mean, he's definitely somewhat scared of Lou because he probably feels that Lou's unpredictable, but he conveys all that very well through his acting.
Was never a huge fan of the guy. Because I watched the night of, and I'm one of the people that was very critical of it, and then I honestly I hated him in it, and then I watched him in one of the Star Wars movies, and I was like, okay, I mean this is whatever. And then what else did I see him in? I think there was something
Can't
else.
believe you haven't watched Sound of Metal yet, bro.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. I will.
I think that's worth watching just because the way that he uses facial expressions in that movie to convey everything. He does a lot of that in Nightcrawler as well, I think. It just, he just does a good job of appearing like somebody who wants to be liked and who is like impressionable but manipulable, like it's just he does a lot there because, like you said, he doesn't have as much dialogue to work with. But yeah, he's a perfect, he's a foil in a sense for Lou. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was really good. I also was not a huge fan of The Night of Farhan. I don't know if I'd blame it on Riz that much.
No, I don't.
His role kind of sucked.
Yeah,
like,
it did.
It just, yeah.
In retrospect, I don't blame him for it, but it's just I remember him getting a lot of acclaim for it, and I'm like, dude, really? Come on now. He was just overly. I think it was just and which he didn't do in this movie at all. But just in that and in other stuff that I had seen him, it's just overly, I think, dramatic and aloof. I guess at the same time, I don't know what the term is. Forget it.
I get what you're saying. Everything is very. It's basically he's always carrying tension on his face.
Yeah.
Especially in The Night of.
Yeah. And that was just so No, not really. It took me out of the process, or it took me, out of every single scene. So I saw the process, So, but this movie, he doesn't do that at all. Everything's very delivered very naturally. Yeah, I mean, he was great. Is this his first movie?
I mean, he was in a lot of stuff before that.
Yeah, The Road to Guantanamo looks like the first thing that he was in.
That was full feature.
Oh.
Right.
That was in 2006.
I didn't see much of anything before this movie though. I've seen The Four Lions. Have you guys seen that?
I have not seen it. I've heard of it.
Right. So that was a 2010 film. But yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the first films that most people have heard of, I guess. But even that maybe not the case.
Yeah, probably not until Rogue One, Star Wars. That's probably the one.
Right.
Most people know him. Or Venom. I forgot that he was in it.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that,
more recently, Venom.
Oh, he was in Banglatown Banquet?
You had to say the one that nobody.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Okay, I was about to say, what is that?
Had me.
Bangla or Bangla Town?
I don't know, dude. It's Banglatown. It's not Banglatown. That's for sure.
So let's talk about the visuals. I actually like the visuals a lot more than the music, but I mean, I weighted them both. I mean, I give it an 80. I mean, most of this movie shot at night, appropriately called Nightcrawler. I just thought the framing, the colors, as Fahad would say, the tone was very, very consistent. It didn't fit. It was appropriate for the scenes. It didn't fit the music to me, but we already discussed why the music was different, and I think Farhan's explanation that the music is more of a sense of how Lou feels rather than what we feel or what we see. So let's ignore that for now and just talk about the visuals. I also mentioned the car chase scene. I thought that was one of the better car chase scenes I've seen. Yeah, I just thought it was a really well shot movie.
Yeah,
I really like nighttime scenes. I think night photography is almost always more beautiful to me than daytime stuff. Because I just feel like the work with shadows and lighting is probably so much more tricky, especially on a bigger set. And I'm sure a lot of it's also After Effects and color correction and stuff. Obviously, you got that tinted blue-orange feel. It's a little neon-like in this movie. So it's very vibrant, and I mean, I like it though. It's visually appealing to me.
Which I figured that would be more difficult to get those vibrant looks with the amount of darkness, nighttime shots that they were using. So yeah, I definitely scored it up for that. it was just, yeah, I thought they did a good job with, framing shots and everything. This is a movie where it's kind of about cinematography because Lou's whole thing
Hey,
is
dude,
like,
yeah, he actually explains exactly what framing
I
is.
was gonna
'Cause I know
say,
you've asked me that.
yeah, he said I was working on framing, and I'm trying to not only get a focal point of the shot, but also hold that shot and hold your attention
Yeah,
longer.
direct the viewer's eye to the subject. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, there you go.
So I mean, like, this movie's about cinematography in a way. They had good cinematography to back that up, I thought.
Yeah.
So like it's just I think it was just pretty consistent in that regard, and there wasn't a lot of moments where I was noticing camera angles or stuff. So like if anything, it was kind of in the background for me, right? So like that's a good thing where I'm not really noticing it and I feel more like I'm in the moment most of the time. I think the only thing I think the only thing is that the music may have been a little bit heavy-handed, although I liked its use in most cases. But that's the only place where I kind of had any sort of issue, really, was just with that.
Yeah, and a lot of the shots in this movie are very tight too, and I think it helps to, portray that uncomfortable feeling that we get from Lou because we're in the car with him, close space. Whenever he's talking to Nina, they're very close to each other. When he's talking to Rick, they're close. I mean, we never really get, wide angle shots in this movie. Very infrequently, maybe to just set the place. I think the one wide angle shot I can think of right now is the one where he goes to the van to like cut the brake lines or whatever. That one's somewhat wide because they're showing both his car and the van in one shot. But otherwise, very tightly shot.
I was also gonna say I don't even know what I would call, I guess, set design or something like that. There's just like we were talking about trying to convey a lot about a character without actually giving the backstory. Just the way that like I remember Lou's apartment is set up, like that conveyed so much to me early on. They give you like a few different shots of the different rooms and like his closet and everything, and it's so weirdly crappy, but also extremely like clean and neat, and like it tells you so much about him, like just with that. I feel like a lot of those like establishing shots that they did early on, those just have so much information in them, which is that's I think that goes towards the aesthetics to me. So
I don't know if this is aesthetics, but the choice of using a Charger SRT was kind of weird. I mean, it was probably product placement, but I was just like, dude, this is like the least stealth car you could possibly have. Like a
Well, it wasn't meant to be stealth.
V8.
It wasn't meant to be stealth at all.
It was meant to be fast, but like in terms of when he's following the SUV, bro,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? A loud V8 heavy engine from
Yeah,
a
no.
Charger.
but they
SRT.
even
That doesn't
mentioned
make
that though, because Rick is
Yeah,
like, dude, they're
yeah,
gonna see
Rick
us.
mentioned
We're in
that.
a
Red
red
car.
car.
We're in a red car. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you would think he would want something a little more stealth. Also, as it's a cop magnet. You don't want to get pulled over when you're trying to go record a scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm being too practical here.
Also, those cars do not have great handling, man. You can't pull off that kind of stuff.
Yes, it's a real
in a
rear-wheel
freaking-
drive car.
Well, no, it's not about
gonna-
it being rear-wheel drive. It's a freaking boat. It is a boat.
Dude, not just that. It's just too powerful. That's why. Like, it's too powerful to be handled well. It's a good straight line car.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
yeah. So, if I had to find issue with, you could totally find issue with some things narratively in this movie. That's why it was the lowest score for me. But I mean, whatever, dude. No movie's gonna be perfect in the narrative stuff. There's always gonna be plot holes and stuff.
I was
Sure.
I was gonna say, like, as far as the music goes, I know we already talked about it, but like to me that's like, if we agree that that's like purposeful, like they chose to do that to kind of rattle you, I just think that was like just so smart.
Right.
Like, it's meant to, I think what Farhan said, right, is obviously appropriate, that like it's what Lou thinks of himself, right? But it's also in the same light, and thematically we were talking about how this is a direct parallel. It's also the behavior is being exemplified and encouraged to a degree, right? So like the director kind of wants you to sit back and think of how disgusting the behavior is, but then also realize that like we actually promote that to a degree. So like that music is meant to make you think about that, I think. And so like I did think that was like so clever, and it was cracking me up at moments, because that scene where you remember there's a scene where he gets to a car accident before the police get there, and he actually
Right.
drags the body
Mhm,
across
mhm,
the road to
mhm.
get a better vantage
Yeah.
point, right? the music is so uplifting in that shot. It's like a sports movie, like where they have, like one last shot to win it, and they drop a crazy play that just might work, right? Like he's holding his camera over his head and the music is swelling. Like it's just while he's shooting this guy's like, bloody body, and he's already got blood all over his clothes. It's too much. I mean, it was hilarious, and it was meaningful at the same time. I don't know.
It's like one of the first. Well, it's not the first time we see him cross lines. Well, before that, like when he steals the guy's watch at the very beginning, the security guards. It's he's realizing that he's gonna start crossing lines to doing this as well to get ahead, and I think maybe that's why the music is as it is, like super motivational and like loud.
Yeah, it's because he's achieving his dreams.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I think we're good here.
Cool.
I think so.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to this production of The Twice Over. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and sharing it with a friend. Want to see what your tally is? Check out thetwiceover.com. All the movies we've done are listed there, as well as what we're watching for the current week. Follow us at The Twice Over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can leave us any suggestions, feedback, or comments. And if you're about it, you can also support us on Patreon. The music you hear on this podcast is from Amerigo Gazaway. You can find his work on Bandcamp and Spotify.